Night of City Council meeting. The City of Placerville, regular City Council meeting, August 22nd, 2017. Would you all please rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, that was great. Thank you very much. Would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Acuna?
Here.
Councilmember Borelli?
Here.
Mayor Clarici?
Here.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins? Here.
All right, we have announcements, presentations to the public, brief comments by the City Council. Mark, do you have any brief comments?
I have a couple of, maybe not so brief, but I have a couple.
Let's be
I
timely.
might. All right, Mr. Mayor. On behalf of Charlie Basham, who's the president of the Goldbug Development Committee, he's asked me to make a couple of announcements for the park and for the city this evening. First, I'd like to announce that for the 5th year in a row, Goldbug Park has been voted by the Mountain Democrat as the best local attraction. So that is a tremendous vote of confidence for the park. A few other things that they've done this year is they had the Memorial Day Priestmine tours. They had which I hope will be an annual murder mystery dinner and the fundraiser in the park. They're working on some new panning troughs. They've done some substantial new improvements in the gift shop. Actually helped the city get rid of the old tower, and it's in its new home, hopefully doing well. They've had 3 Eagle Scout projects completed out there this year so far, and they are next planning, this is the other announcement, Priest Mine Tours, which is becoming a bit of a standard event on Memorial Day and on Labor Day. On Saturday, September 2nd, the committee is going to have the Priest Mine open for tours. Tickets are $4, payable in cash only. They'll be having all the other normal attractions at the mine and at the park also be open. The ticket sales start at 10 a.m. and the last ticket will be sold at 3:15, which is approximately a 20-minute tour. So the park will wind up closing around 4. Gate always closes at 5. In the past, they've always had several hundred visitors come out to take this opportunity to go through the Priest Mine, which is indeed a different mining experience. You can see the Cornish mining method in that particular mine, unlike the timbered, more typical mine that you see when you're in the Goldbug. So, again, that's this coming Labor Day weekend on Saturday only from 10 a.m. to 3:15 out at Goldbug. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Anyone else? Patty?
No, I was just going to offer my congratulations to Goldbug, too.
Of course you will. Down there? Nothing? Okay. Okay, I have a couple of announcements. One, we're having a parking meeting next Tuesday here at 6 o'clock. I expect you to all be here because parking in downtown is really, 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 really important. So it'll be the parking committee, not the city council. So the parking committee will be convening the meeting. Bring your ideas. We're going to talk all about parking. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is, and actually we'll be having another meeting before this happens, but I want to have everybody put on their radars a new event for Placerville. It's called Apple Core Fringe, and it's being brought up by this delightful young man who graduated from El Dorado High School, Gavin Wesson? I forget his last name because it's Gavin. Anyway, Gavin. He came to a PDA meeting a couple of months ago, and he was so energetic and so thoughtful and so just wonderful that he got me all excited about his project, an Apple Core Fringe. I'll probably mess this up, but if you look it up on the interwebs, it'll tell you what it is. But basically, it's going to be a lot of several venues in town will be having sort of smallish performances, so it's like theater. And it just sounds intriguing. They do them in other cities. I think actually of all places, I shouldn't say of all places, it makes it sound bad. I believe they do this in Bakersfield of all places. And then there's some other places that sound more intriguing, like, I don't know, Aspen or someplace like that. So, but it's something new, and I'm really excited about it because it's just something new for the community, and we're hoping it's really good. It will be held in September on the 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, so that weekend, and then I believe I have it down here on the 15th, 16th, and 17th. Now, one thing, and Cleve will get into this more later in the agenda, one of the things that I was taken by when Gavin was being very energetic in front of the PDA was the thought of perhaps using Old City Hall as one of the venues. Old City Hall just kind of sits there and it collects dust. I mean, one side is rented out, but the other side is not, and it has its issues. So after I found out that it wouldn't fall on anybody, we're going to go ahead and hopefully have that as a venue, which I think will be very exciting for the community to see something going on in that building besides just dust and cobwebs. So, and then I think the likelihood is I think there's going to be one up at Cosmic and some of the other buildings in town. So I just want to bring that to your attention. Apple Core Fringe, check it out.
How do we get tickets?
I don't.
Google it?
I
All
just
right.
exhausted my entire Apple Core knowledge. So, but that's it. So,
Mayor, the name is Gavin Sellers.
Gavin Sellers, and I guess he graduated from El Dorado just a couple of years ago and was very involved with performing arts and whatnot. And he's coming back to the community and wants to do something really cool in this community, which I think whenever you have a young person coming back to town and doing something, that is something that we should all support. So anyway, that's that. We have something off the agenda. I'm making it 3.1.5. And it's something about AT&T and a grant and money. And we have Alice Perez here to say something about it. Thank you. And Bill Roby and Paul Sabatini from the Community Foundation, the El Dorado Community Foundation. I hacked it all up. Now repair it for me, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Apple Core Fringe Festival will also be taking place in the Foundation Courtyard. So we're
Perfect.
very pleased to be a part of
That's
that.
great.
So the El Dorado Community Foundation is honored to receive an award of $20,000 from AT&T in support of El Dorado High School's Blue Latte tutoring program. Blue Latte is a unique peer-to-peer tutoring program pairing lower at-risk high school students with academically individuals within El Dorado High School that are really achieving together in a peer-to-peer learning experience. The program offers academic and social support to the lower grade students and also builds youth leadership skills to the upper grade students. It helps supports a culture of community, connectedness in high school while building unlikely friendships. This $20,000 award will be used to add bilingual tutors and provide college and vocational school tours. Blue Latte anticipates having a total of 40 tutors available to support students, which is pretty amazing when you start having other students do the tutoring, and it increases their skill set as well as the students that are being tutored. So this is a big thank you for AT&T for providing local students with the tools and opportunities necessary to successfully complete high school and prepare them to pursue a positive and enriching future. So it's my pleasure to introduce Alice Perez, the Area Director for External Affairs with AT&T.
Thank you. This is, AT&T has a national program called Aspire, and it's focused on innovative education programs that help students be successful. And so I cover 22 counties. This is one of the counties that I cover, and I was looking for some unique programs out there that I thought were very successful, and I'm happy to say this is one of the programs that we thought was going to make a big difference in the community. And so AT&T so far has given away over $400 million towards community programs like this. And so we're very excited to partner with the foundation to actually roll out this program today. And I thank you for allowing us to do a tech presentation here, because it will benefit the community as a whole. Thank you.
Oh, of course. This is quite a good thing. Is there anything else?
So now we'd like
We need to go get our check.
the photo with the check.
Not our check, but
I've always wanted a novel.
Not jumping.
Anytime that we can get 20,000 for school students, we're excited. Put Wendy in the middle.
Well, I'd like to thank AT&T for being such a huge part of the communities, and thank you for covering 22 counties. Oh goodness, you could run for assembly for something. And it reminds me that I need to get in touch with my 40-year employee, PG&E, and find out where their $20,000 check is for the community. I'll talk to you later, Bill. Thank you, sir. And seriously, thank you very much to the
Well,
corporate.
I have to say real quick, I had the pleasure of traveling with Alice on the chamber tour when we went to Seattle, and I got to meet her, and we had some nice conversations, and we're looking forward to having her come and do some presentations for us. So it was good. Thank you, Alice.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Yes, thank you very
everybody.
much. Okay. Well, that felt good. All right, item 3.2, report from El Dorado County Animal Services. Henry Brzezinski. Cleve, do you want to tee this up? Or are we
Yeah,
just gonna-
Henry, go ahead and come up, Henry. I passed out, and for the audience, there are some copies of this report on the back table if you want. And just kind of some statistics that Henry will go through, and then also talk about some of the things that they do and what happens. So with that, I'll turn it over to Henry, who is the Chief of Animal Control Services for the county.
Good evening, Mayor Clarici and members of City Council. My name is Henry Brzezinski. I'm the Chief of El Dorado County Animal Services, and go over our program and what we provide to the city of Placerville. We are a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week operation, public safety and education oriented. There's issues, as many of you know, dog bites, concerns that could happen in your community. Again, our main goal is to educate people in the community so they don't keep doing the same behavior, allowing your dogs to run at large, harming people, causing traffic accidents, and such. First of all, I always like to talk about our program very briefly. It's a very positive program. Many of you know we have a shelter that's 3 years old. Built by the county. It was a long involved project, and it draws many people in from the community. We have a constant flow of folks. As they say, build it and they will come. We have many people that are willing to bring in their animals, but as well, many people that are willing to adopt animals. And we're open on Saturdays. Incorporated in that sheltering program, which the city contributes to, our most recent fiscal year 16-17, our live release rate, which is essentially animals that are reclaimed by their owners, adopted, transferred maybe to another animal rescue group because it's a purebred dog that maybe has additional medical needs. We had a 93% live release rate for dogs in 16-17 and 78% for cats. And cats are always a quandary. We've got a lot of feral cat issues in our community that we continue to work with different agencies. We do have a non-general fund operation where people donate and we can fix animals up to make them adoptable and treatable in certain circumstances. So Our euthanasia, and that's something people don't like to talk about, but the reality is in El Dorado County, and your contribution, we don't euthanize for space. I always say I feel for my partners, my regional partners down in Sacramento, that are handling 45,000 animals a year down there, down the hill. They're overwhelmed. If we have an animal that we can fix, we're going to do it with donor funds. We recently had our volunteers raise over $4,000 to fix up 2 dogs that needed some major medical stuff, and in collaboration with local veterinarians. So it's a great program. We strive to find all animals homes. The only animals that are euthanized are irremediably suffering, or animals that are aggressive to the community, and that would be a danger to put back in from a public safety perspective. You've got some numbers in front of you. Basically, our calls for service, or activities, which we call, were 675 last year, and we brought in 328 animals in the city of Placerville. As you go down to the different categories related to assist, sites, complaints, court, deceased, investigations, there's various subtypes related to those numbers. Essentially, the assister for law enforcement, if the City of Placerville Police Department calls, we're there. We provide a high level of service of their officers, because they're right here in the community. Highway 50 is close. If they find a dog on patrol at night, my officers that work between 5 at night and 8 the next morning that are on call will respond to the police department and get that animal, or assist them in getting the animal. Some of that involves arrest after hours. It seems like people like to drive intoxicated and have a dog in their car. The other day they had 2 dogs and 2 cats. Essentially, so we have to remove those animals when they're taken into custody. We do issue some citations. A lot of it we try to do, again, by notice of violation warnings. We pick deceased animals up in the city limits. In the county, it's a little bit different dynamic relative to property owners, but that's part of the contract here in the city of Placerville. Investigations, bite investigations. We're required by state law to quarantine animals. That's why we stress, as some of you might have seen the Mountain Democrat article, very important that people vaccinate their animals for rabies. If they're not, we have to carry those animals to the shelter and hold them for either a 10-day quarantine, a 30-day quarantine, or a 6-month quarantine, depending on circumstances. We do try to work with people because we prefer them to quarantine their animals at home. We do patrols, and if you look at the statistics over time, some numbers have gone down. The more proactive we are in the community, watching out for problem areas, the numbers of impounds of animals will go down over time. And people are finally getting it about spay-neuter with their dogs. We don't have the puppies we used to have at shelters, but we still have the kitten overload. Dangerous dogs, we do investigations. Rescue, in the city, we had some kittens in a drain a couple of months ago in the city limits. Officers responded, removed them, and worked with some other county employees, and then responded back. And then stray complaints are one of the biggest issues. Nuisance problems, barking dogs, things of that nature. How we do the calculation is based on the total Western Slope program, separate from the South Lake Tahoe operation. And every year we calculate the numbers based on impounds and complaints. This past fiscal year, it was 10.6% of the program. That's pretty much it. One other thing that's real major that's occurred in the city limits, 2 just within the last year, and then 1 a little bit further back, that law enforcement would have probably had to investigate, and when they did assist us on 1, but we had a quarter living with in the city limits. Code enforcement worked on us, PD a little bit. We executed a search warrant and removed, because my officers do have powers of arrest, search, and seizure. We removed, I think it was 12 dogs living in just horrible conditions. We work with mental health to try to get this individual health. We went through the court system as well. She had 4 cats in the house too. It was a sad situation for the animals and the individual. We had another one that we dealt with last summer. Chronic problem. It was a traffic issue that we stayed on top of. It was an accident waiting to happen. We were at the cusp of basically probably seizing these animals and individually repeatedly allowed them to run at large on mallard. And that would have been a nightmare for somebody to encounter those animals. So we after multiple contacts with the individual and tickets, unfortunately, but multiple tickets, the person finally contained his animals. The other one was a recent abandonment case here in the city limits. It was a report to us about a dog that had been left in a dwelling for several weeks. So we do investigate animal cruelty and neglect as well. That's pretty much it. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us tonight and for giving us a state of animal control and what the options are. Got a couple of questions. You say a large part of your work is education. How do you go about educating folks on, animal issues?
So if we receive a complaint, normally that's how we get our
Okay.
Information. The public will contact us, a concerned citizen. Our officers will respond and will make contact with the individual and talk to them about the situation. Say your neighbor, and it depends. There's a varying level of contact. Sometimes it is a citation right away, but oftentimes it's you need to do better with your fencing. Your dog's barking. Here's the process. What's going to happen with barking if we get to basically multiple contacts? Then you will be going to court. Ticket could be issued. Licensing enforcement, we will write tickets, but we're interested in compliance, not penalties. So we try to collaborate with folks and say, hey, get your animal spayed or neutered, the license is cheaper. So a lot of it is education with the staff. We don't have any issues with issuing tickets, but we try to work with people first to give them the benefit of the doubt. A lot of times it's neighbor. Sometimes we find out they've repeatedly complained about somebody for every other thing, and they're using us as an avenue as well.
Right,
I'm sure the police department's aware of that as we are.
Well, I appreciate understanding a little more about that, because we could use your help on another matter in the city of Placerville. And those listening may think this is funny, but we have a challenge with roosters in Lumsden Park, and it's gotten to be a real challenge throughout this year, where roosters, we have heard, are really running amok in Lumsden. Evidently, there may be someone that is advertising that they will take roosters, because right now we have a no rooster ordinance in the city of Placerville. They are not allowed. And so it seems like folks are dropping roosters off, or perhaps a neighbor is advertising that he'll take them, and they're running over the park and really disturbing a lot of the neighbors. And we really do need some help with this situation. I understand that one of the neighbors took it into their own hands and actually shot a rooster. Now, it wasn't with a rifle. It was with, I don't know, with an air gun or something. But we need your help with taking care of this problem in Lumsden. So, yeah. So
We will we'll continue to work on that issue. I'm going to talk to Parks and Rec, Steve.
Appreciate that.
And try and
Yeah.
possibly some ideas I have related to signage, abandonment. I don't want this to be the Fair Oaks. I don't know, but it's been the Fair Oaks. The amount of chickens and roosters down there. So we'll,
And perhaps some educational, information to the neighbors
community,
could be
yeah.
helpful too.
yes, and we'll also be we're working on getting some different types of traps. The traps that we were trying to utilize. There's some other alternatives.
Okay. Really appreciate you helping us get a handle on that. Thank you very
Will do.
much.
Thank you.
You do?
Yes, I think you do.
Okay.
Henry, thank you very much for coming this evening. And thank you to staff, I guess, for getting us the statistics. This is the first that I've seen. It gives us an idea of where we're at with the number of calls and the types of calls that you're handling. Recently, during National Night Out, I asked the sergeant that I was riding with, I said, how many barking dog complaints do you guys get? There was kind of a blank moment. He says, we don't get those anymore. And I can remember when the Placerville PD was the prime source for those types of calls. So it was refreshing to see that there was one little less duty that they had to deal with as they go about their shifts. And I also appreciate from the information I obtained from Public Works that you've been doing an excellent job in picking up the dead animals off our roadways. Public Works crews seldom apparently have to get involved in that anymore, and we certainly appreciate that. The old days in a barking dog complaint, it can certainly turn to neighbor versus neighbor, and my dog never barked, and so on and so forth. It sounds like you probably got a pretty good handle with your officers in your department on how you approach those types of calls.
Yeah, that's correct. There's basically kind of a 1, 2, 3 strikes approach. What we do is somebody makes a complaint to us about a barking dog. We'll start off with a nuisance abatement letter. Then and it depends. If it's really egregious and it's been going on for a while, we're going to go out on the first. But usually we send a letter, give them the opportunity to comply. Second complaint, we let basically the letter go out. Second complaint, we'll respond and attempt to make contact with the individuals and talk to them about alternatives such as citronella collars. A lot of people don't realize those are exceptional way to control a dog, and people are like, I didn't know about that. I didn't research it. So again, it's education based. Now, if we're back out there in the third time, we're going to be writing a written warning or a citation. We do collaborate with the complaining party because their peace is being disturbed, so they have to provide some evidentiary information to us related to how often the law says continuous and frequent of a raucous nature. So basically, the standard is pretty much like 15 minutes continuous or on, off. So ultimately, we will cite people. We have been in traffic court related to some barking issues. Usually happens by the time we're in traffic court, 2 to 3 months down the road, they finally got the message and they've got it straight. And usually the traffic judge, the Superior Court judge is like, okay, how's it been going since? So not too many come to that. There's an occasional one where, there's a repeat offender, but it's I can count it on 5 hands. So we will report to PD or the SO after a third contact. So say a neighbor is really concerned after hours, instead of my staff going out at night because they run on enough calls, for arrests and injured animals, then law enforcement can go out and issue a ticket as well after hours on behalf of the citizen. So. But we seem to keep a good handle on the barking issues.
Thank you. That can be very disruptive to a neighborhood. And I would just like to echo the rooster issue. And it's become, a rooster dump is what I've called it. I understand there's 12 in residence out there right now. And I don't think I'd want to hear them start at 4 in the morning and go all day long. And I suspect people are, anyone that raises chickens knows you don't always know what you're getting. And I think Lumsden has become the place that people feel, I guess, good about dumping somebody, dumping a bird because there's a pond and there's other birds. So we've got a significant problem out there. So any help you can get us on that, I think we probably need to think out of the box. It's unfortunate that it's come to this, but I do really feel for the surrounding neighbors. Right. But thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. And we'll patrol. I've directed my operation manager to look at that hard. And additionally, if we see somebody dumping a rooster, it's a violation of misdemeanor state law of abandonment of any kind of animal. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I just also wanted to I'm getting the rooster complaints too, so, and the biggest part of that is the noise. It's the crowing. Sure. And it's just driving the people nuts. They said they kind of compared it to a fingernail going down a blackboard. And it's it starts at 4 in the morning and they just can't take it anymore. Okay. So. Good. I hope you catch them.
We will.
Tricia? Anything? Okay. I have a question, and I'm going to apologize. It's not really a question. It's more of a thought. And I wish I had done my homework. I'm looking, and I'm doing this from my memory, which is always suspect. I'm looking at the number of complaints and the totals from 2012 through 2013 on the West Slope, and they seem, they run in a range. There was a high, the highs actually was in 12 and 13, and they seem to run in a range. I imagine if you ran a line through these, about 1,000 a year. And the one thing that one of the reasons why I wanted to have you come and chat with us was, and here again, I apologize, and I may be totally off base, but it seems like in the 3 years that I've been on the council, the budget, what we've budgeted for animal control has gone up significantly from the first year so that would have been 15, 16, or 14, 15, I guess, to now. And I'm just wondering, since the numbers are kind of the same, is there any explanation of what is driving those higher budget numbers to the tune that we're almost up to just shy of $200,000 for the service? Now, I'm not, it might be totally worth $200,000. This isn't the point. The point is that it seems to have increased significantly over the last 3 years, just since the time that I've been on the council.
Yeah, so what occurred up till 2015, 2016 was that the county government as a whole was not charging the general fund animal services budget for overhead for A87 fees. So as of 15, 16, the county then started charging my program for overhead for all operational needs. So that's what drove up the contract. It drove up our whole budget. County employees got 3 raises over time as well, 5%, 5%, and 5%. So costs have gone up, and that's essentially what drove the contract up.
Yes?
Let me add to that. In addition, prior to them constructing the new animal shelter, they were here in the
Right.
city, as you know, down on Placerville Drive.
Right.
And at that time, because of that, we received a discount, if you will, on our services. And then when they went away from that, they went to the new service. Actually, it was a little bit before they moved out. They slowly brought that back in to where we were paying a full 100%. So we were only paying, I want to say, 80% of the calculated cost. That was without the overhead cost.
That's part of it as well.
That was due to the fact that they were on, the reasoning and the justification was that they were on Placerville Drive in a prime retail location that could be a sales tax generator. And so that's why they agreed to that. And,
Okay.
and then when they moved off there, of course, they slowly went to the full 100%, and then the overhead cost was also added in. So
Okay.
that's why you went from 80% of the cost without the overhead to 100% with the overhead. That's why you see the significant increases over time.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Morris, for
Okay.
clarifying that. Way back in the day when we were at the water treatment plant, basically you charged us $1 to lease the facility, and we provided free animal services.
Right.
And then over time, I think when we finally said, okay, the city's going to have to start paying in '07 when we moved to the other location. We negotiated with the city, and they said, okay, I think it was 75 1 year, 80, 85. It crept up to 100%. So
Okay. How many folks work for you?
on the western slope, we have 5 animal control officers, 3 animal shelter attendants, 1 shelter supervisor, 3 front office administrative folks, and that's not enough. I can tell you, we're bombarded every day with calls, dispatching, and
Sure.
the public. And then myself and an operations manager. Both of us work the field as well as backup. Something goes down in the city, and my officers we have a zone 3, which is city and surrounding. Something happens here, one of us is jumping in a truck wherever we're at from a meeting to come. So,
Okay, thank you.
So,
Thank you.
I just real quick, do you have a truck that patrols at night, or do you just wait for a call?
From 5 o'clock at night till 8 o'clock the next morning, we have an officer on call on both slopes, actually. That officer responds to priority calls. Normally, it's going to be law enforcement directed or CHP. The police department sees a dog hit by a car out here on Highway 50. We're going to respond. We're going to send an officer and take that animal up. And then we're required to provide emergency care, not going to leaps and bounds, but we'll stabilize the animal and see what we can do, or the veterinarian might determine it has to be euthanized. But from 5 at night till 8 in the morning, no. There are occasions where officers might work over. Something seems to always happen at 4:45 on a Friday or a Monday. So.
Great, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that. I guess public comment? Sure. Would anybody from the public like to comment on the wonderful animal control? Oh, come on up. Don't be bashful. Please state your name and location, name and home for the record, and you have 3 minutes. Okay.
Oh, I just want to thank the gentleman for his informative measure. I do have a question that maybe a lot of us have. If you know what the law, whether it be local or state, is regarding animals in restaurants. Could you? Sure.
The law changed actually about 2 years ago. You now can have animals in restaurants. It's outside, exterior to the building, on patios, and it's also, the proprietor can say no. But if it's related to assistance animals, which are sight, signal, or service animals, you can't bar those animals from a location.
What about comfort animals?
Actually, that's a new issue. They're called also emotional support animals, and the only laws that allow those animals in different facilities are airplane carriers laws. There's a FAA law that was passed, and certain housing developments. But otherwise, people can say they have an emotional support animal, but that does not qualify under the state or federal law. So now you can have a miniature horse, and that's considered, I actually saw one at a state park one time.
I've seen that.
So is that the same rules for restaurants pertain to grocery stores? Like,
No, grocery stores really, I know people are bringing animals to different locations, and that they're not necessarily, except for assistance animals. You can't just bring a dog in. I know a lot of the community stores are allowing that, and my concern in my field is a potential liability, but I can't tell businesses what to do. It's private, property.
well, I object, and even if they're a service animal, when they're in a cart that I'm going to put my food in, I mean, I don't know, I don't care how clean people keep them, I don't want to put my food in a cart where a dog's been.
Sure.
And I just wondered what the rule.
I do think that the businesses, I haven't researched that part, but I do believe they could tell them they couldn't have them in a cart. There has to be, so the health and safety code does require anybody that has an assistance animal to follow health and licensure requirements. Now, this way, for cleanliness or whatever. They have to be cautious, though. There's a lot of issues that surround that. And there are people, I'll be quite frank, that they fill out the affidavit, come in and apply for an assistance dog tag from us, which is free. And the parameters are very limited, and they'll sign an affidavit, and they take advantage of the system.
I'm sure.
And
Thank you.
I had one other question.
Oh, yeah.
Since Henry was good enough to come back up. Thank you, because that is something that you see a lot. There's a lot on social media and in the news about the controversies over where dogs should be. Henry, question. You've heard our concerns about the costs going up, and appreciate your explanation on that. Would it be possible to, if we could get a report from you for the activity in Placerville, say every 6 months, so that we would kind of have a feel for what's going on, and if there is any issues?
Sure. Mr. Morris and I actually met about a month ago, and we're going to provide quarterly reports, and we can delve down into subtypes if necessary to get down to the specifics. And
that would be wonderful.
And I do give you my promise. I have a person who's a real statistics freak, and she does not miss anything. It's like if it's in the city of Placerville, it's in there. If it's not, it's not in there. So we're always looking at our
Most
our
appreciated.
data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Thank you so much for being here. We really
Oh,
appreciate it.
We have another comment.
Smith, I did have some questions. The first is, what are the dollar figures during the last fiscal year? How much did it cost the city of Placerville for animal control services? And what's the increase over the previous year? Also, how many reports has that office received of crowing roosters during the last 12 months? And how many of the reports you've received tonight were ever made to you prior to today? Any written reports about roosters crowing in Placerville? And then the next question is, if there's a report of somebody firing a rifle in the city limits of Placerville, is that something the chief or other law enforcement would handle? The last is, there's a problem about errant outlaw ducks and geese over in a park the city has that are dumped by people, left orphans to leave waste all over and quack around. So what kind of work can be done to clean up that problem?
I do need to clarify, though, it was not a rifle. I don't want people thinking that. It was not a rifle. It was an air gun.
Good questions. We will find all that stuff out. Great. Okay, anybody else? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Appreciate that. That was good. All right.
Mr. Morris?
Go. Does Mr. Morris want to say anything? He doesn't have to.
I don't, Dave, do you happen to have those cost numbers
No.
tonight? I don't know that we do.
I have approximate numbers. Animal Services estimated for fiscal year 16-17 was approximately $170,000. and for fiscal year 17-18 projected roughly $206,000.
Okay, thank you. All righty. Let's see, closed session report. Playing Mr. Driscoll this evening will be Cleve Morris, the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, the Council considered two claims, in closed session. The first regarding Mark and Gina Hale. The Council took action to reject in part the claim and to return the claim as untimely in part. Okay. The second claim is regarding Michael and Barbara Hopkins, and the Council took action to reject that claim.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we need to adopt this agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great. We have a ceremonial matter. September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. I have a proclamation. It's long. Let's see. A proclamation of the City Council of the City of Placerville declaring September 2017 as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Placerville. Prostate cancer is the most frequently diagnosed cancer in men, aside from skin cancer, and it is estimated 1 in 8 men will develop this disease in their lifetime. The American Cancer Society estimates there will be 161,360 new cases of prostate cancer in the USA in 2017, resulting in an estimated 26,730 deaths. It is estimated 14,520 men in California will be diagnosed with prostate cancer this year, and it is estimated 3,130 California men will die from this disease. Men of African American descent have the highest prostate cancer incident rates in the world, and their death rate is twice as high as any other ethnic group. Early prostate cancer usually has no symptoms, and studies suggest strong familial predisposition may be responsible for 5 to 10% of the disease cases. Advanced prostate cancer commonly spreads to the bones, which can cause pain in the hips, spine, ribs, and other areas in the body. The 5-year survival rate approaches 100% when prostate cancer is diagnosed and treated early, but drops to 29% when it spreads to the other parts of the body. Treatment options for prostate cancer vary depending on men's age, stage, and grade of his cancer, as well as his other existing medical conditions. The American Cancer Society recommends that men should have an opportunity to make an informed decision about whether to be tested for prostate cancer based on their personal values and preferences. The City of Placerville joins communities across our nation to increase the awareness about the importance of for men to make an informed decision with their health care provider about early detection and testing for prostate cancer. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, John Clarici, Mayor of the City of Placerville, do hereby proclaim this month, the month of September 2017, as Prostate Cancer Awareness Month in the City of Placerville, and I commend this observance to all citizens. Is there somebody here? Oh, there is. Hi there. What?
Did you sign it?
Well, not yet. I will.
Oh, I thought you were going to take it back to
I'm going to, but I'm just going to. I'm sorry. A name, please.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. My name is Richard Montgomery, and I'd like to thank everyone for, again, renewing the proclamation. I think this is the 4th or 5th year that the council has done that, and I've come up to say thank you very much. The long proclamations and the things and the data that's put out by American Cancer Society and things get a little windy. I'm a 20-year survivor of prostate cancer. I chair the local prostate cancer support group in Cameron Park, have done so for 4 or 5 years. I would like to encourage any man at an early age to get tested. It's a simple $15, maybe it's $17, blood test, but there's been a lot of controversy about testing and treatment, and it's gone on for many years, but right now the test is the only one we've got. There's 2 or 3 that are being worked on now, probably be 5 years before they get approved, but it's the only test we have. And what has happened is a lot of people get tested, and the doctor says, we need to do something serious. Well, that's not necessarily true. So early testing sets the benchmark, and we move on from there. So, for instance, I've had prostate cancer, so I've insisted that my son get tested. I don't know if he's doing it or not. But I've said, hey, when you hit 40, get tested. So I work with a lot of different patients. I also volunteer at the University of California, Davis, downtown. And as people are diagnosed, I volunteer to say, would you like to talk to somebody that's been there, done that? Well, I did it 20 years ago. The treatments today are totally different, and your options are totally different. When I got treated, you didn't have options, so it was kind of the radical way to go. But anyhow, beyond that, anybody has questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but I don't want to take any more time up out of a busy schedule. And
No, this
thank
is
you.
important. So if we have any, do we have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you very much for
Yeah.
that participation. I think it takes people like you to make this program keep going and get the message out there, and it's very, very important. And if anybody was listening to these statistics, I know it was a little lengthy, but still, it's very, very important numbers there. It really makes you, I would assume that.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, as a group, men don't really talk about stuff like this too much, and it's kind of difficult. So the more of it that we do talk about, and the more information we get out there, folks, and mostly just making it comfortable for the men to kind of discuss this item is a good thing, I think. So anyway, anybody else? Okay, I have a thing for you, and a blue thing. So
All right,
I'm gonna
thing.
give it to you. Okay, public comment. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the council on any matter not on the agenda that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the city council. State law prohibits the council from acting on items not listed on the agenda except by special action of the city council under very specific circumstances. You have 3 minutes. Is the clock working today? It wasn't working the last time.
Looks like it is.
Well, it's not moving. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now reset it because we don't want to shortchange anybody. There are 2 seconds. Thank you. So we do have the clock. It's 3 minutes. Golden rule, be nice. Don't say things that you wouldn't want to have said about you. Do we have any written communications? No, we don't. Okay. Would anybody like to speak during the open mic?
Good evening, Kirk Smith. Mayor, just a question. Down below under consent calendar, it says that some matters can be taken off the calendar for discussion if it comes from a council member. Can it be a member of the public who asks for discussion? Because I did have some comments and questions on 8.4.
You'd like me to answer that, Mayor? The answer is the public can request it of a council member. Ultimately, it's the city council that has to make that decision. So the public can request it at that time.
Okay. Is there any other person that would like to make a public comment?
Hi, Sheila Kelly from Powell's, and I just want to say thank you to all of you for considering and bringing us back again for this, the parking issue. At first, it seemed like it was just going to not have any, we couldn't discuss it at all, but you've been very gracious and allowed us to come back in and fight for what we really, really need. So I want to say thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ladies and gentlemen, City Council, my name is Mike Spiegel, born and raised in El Dorado County. Used to cruise Maine back in the 60s from Waldron Motors to A&W Root Beer, and then back down and then up again until you either
good
ran out
old
of
days.
gas or you throw your shoulder out waving to the people you waved on the way going up and back.
In the Tower Fountain.
Anyways, I wanted to tell you a little bit about the parking issue.
Okay,
I
hold
know
on.
that-
Can we, excuse me?
Yes.
That's actually an agenda item that we're going to have. So if you want to wait with anything parking, we will discuss it at that time, okay?
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Continue dragging the gut, kids.
I haven't heard that in a long time. Would anyone else like to provide comment in item 6? Okay. All right, we'll bring it back here then. Thank you very much. Okay, consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion by roll call vote unless any member of the council wishes to remove an item for discussion. The reading of the full text of all resolutions will be waived unless a council member requests otherwise. We did get a request about 8.4. Now, we do also have the opportunity as part of the consent item to, we open it up to discussion, so anybody can ask questions and comments about a specific item. So the only question I would have is, does it, removing it sort of give it like, I'm going to say something special status or something, but no, it's just, we would then just remove it and talk about it in that particular area. Okay. Yes?
Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
I also would like to have Mr. Warren, I don't want to remove it, but if he could just give us a report on 8.5, I think it's interesting. I think the public doesn't know about this, and I think it's something that maybe it would behoove us to tell.
So I'm happy to pull. I'm happy to pull 8.4 and 8.5. I don't think that's a problem. Okay? All right, so.
Would you like a motion for the balance?
Sure.
I'll move the balance of the consent calendar.
I'll second it.
Okay, do we have any public comment on items 8.1, 8.2, or 8.3? Okay. Do we have any questions about those items? Okay, and we have a motion, so will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarici?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Okay, well now I have to find, bear with me, I have to find 8.4. Okay, found.
And on item
yes?
8.4, I'm going to recuse myself on that item, since it has to do with my husband. So, I'm gonna,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, go. Recuse. Okay. All right. Wait for Councilmember Thomas to go to the soundproof booth. And, okay. 8.4, appoint the Measure H/L Sales Tax Committee with the addition of Dennis Thomas and Sue Reese to serve as the Ad Hoc Parking Advisory Committee. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Just quickly, as you know, previously the council appointed the Measure H Committee as with the addition of Dennis Thomas and Sue Reese as our ad hoc parking committee. Last spring, as you recall, we kind of abolished Measure H and combined it with Measure L. And so staff felt, as we're continuing this parking committee again, that it would be appropriate to have you confirm or reappoint that committee. Our recommendation is that you continue with the Measure H/L committee. And Dennis Thomas actually is kind of in two roles now. We had looked at, he is president of PDA right now. And he was an important factor in the past due to his experience working with the parking committee years ago when it was needed. And Sue Reese, with her experience serving on the committee and how we reached the decision that they currently have, the current parking program, was a recommendation that she continue. So there are a couple of new members on the HL committee that were not part of the parking committee, so there will be some education there and some new members that we'll have to work with. So.
Well, thank you. Do we have any questions up here before we open it up? Okay. Oh, the public comment on this.
Kirk Smith. The reason for having questions is, as you noticed from the last meetings of the council, there was a lot of strong views, extraordinarily strong views for merchants about parking, and it seems like this is a very appropriate time to look for fresh talent instead of the people who've been on that body for an extraordinarily long time. Merchants had a right to think that they were sandbagged. I'm going to just cite for you the agenda of the Placerville Downtown Association for January of this year. An item towards the very end says, quote, parking update, Dennis Thomas, 5 minutes. Now, if you're a merchant, one of the 270 or so members of the Downtown Business Association, and you get that agenda, how would you possibly think from something like parking update that this is the most dramatic change that we've seen for parking regulations in an extraordinarily long time, that it's the first report from a parking committee in a year and a half. So that's why people were left off guard. And then you see something immediately above it like Boy Scout Troop 58, 5 minutes. Look, you cannot read the specific report produced about the parking recommendations in 5 minutes, let alone start to ask for specific questions. So whether it's done on purpose or a competence issue, it's just time for fresh talent. And it'd be good to have people who were among those who came in and talked to you during the last few meetings. Lastly, I would point out that you have it lost me for just a moment that you have it's time for change, and I think that would be appropriate to do that. People were caught off guard, and it's not the way the rollout, at the very least, was not attractively handled. So we need to do something better, and that's not a way to give merchants notice is with an agenda like that, and that's the first one we had. So who out of the business people are going to read an agenda like that and get notice of what's going on? They're busy people, 60 hours a week, typically like that, so it's not something that's going to ring out to them. I think we need a change.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item?
Sue Rodman. I was drafted on the parking committee last year, and it looks like I would be drafted again. And I too think that maybe at this next meeting on the 28th, 29th of September, next Tuesday, that would be a good time to ask if there are people who are willing, besides the HL committee, to get involved. So that, because we already have a fairly complicated thing to work on with the city's infrastructure, with roads and pipes and water systems, sewer systems, and all the roads. Maybe the parking committee should be people who are involved with the parking committee. If some of us would like to volunteer to stay on the parking committee, that's one thing, but I personally think that I could let my spot go to somebody else who's interested more in parking than they are in infrastructure.
Thank you. Anyone else? We're going to drive the gut again. And that, I want to hear how this ends.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello.
I'm the cruiser. As I said, I was born and raised in. This is about the parking. Is that correct?
This is about.
Okay, good.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you. This is about the parking committee. I think we're going to get real technical here. You may wish to speak when we actually talk about the item, which is 12.1.
Okay. Boy, my mama used to really.
The third time's a charm.
There
right?
you go. Sorry about that. This is about the parking committee. Okay. Anyone else wish to talk about the parking committee? All right. Thank you. Bring it back. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions, comments on this item?
Well, I like the idea of always soliciting new and interested participants in any of these committees. We sadly have a very hard time getting folks to either even apply or apply and attend more than a couple of meetings. So it seemed like the idea of making a part of the next week's workshop, if anyone is interested, once the work is done that evening, maybe say that there is, if you're interested, contact the city manager or whatever. Your thoughts on that?
Do you have a comment? Okay. A couple of things that I have concerns about. We hear in the community that this is something that we need to remedy fairly quickly. If we bring in too many new people to this committee, and we're not talking about, it's actually a pretty complicated thing. There's a number of different issues involved that someone would have to come up to speed with, and it is, you certainly have to learn the history of what went on. And, I only went to the very first parking committee meeting because I just wanted to see kind of how it would start and go off, and then I wanted the committee to kind of work on their own. I didn't want to be a presence there, but I did go to the first one. And there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of widgety things. And I'm afraid that if we were to say, okay, let's reconstitute the committee in any kind of real way, bring in more people or different people, that we would be starting the process all over again. And I got the impression that the merchants and the folks that came and have spoken to us at the last couple of meetings desired action in the short term. So then the question is, can you provide good input and inform the process, but not be on the committee? The thing with the committee that I look for are folks that have some resident knowledge of the subject, and certainly someone like Dennis Thomas, who has been on Main Street for a long time, understands the parking situation. He was there when the machines were first put on Main Street 10, 11 years ago now. There are other folks on the HL committee that have, they have backgrounds in, well, one of them owns a building on Main Street. They've had businesses on Main Street. The other member, Sue Reese, has a business on Main Street. They're certainly plugged into the community. And I'm just a little afraid that if we open this thing back up, that we're actually going to delay the process that nobody wants to have delayed. Because then we have to make sure that the new committee understands and has knowledge about everything that the old committee did. So that would be my concern. The implication is, I think, the other thing about the PDA, I go to all the PDA meetings. I've only missed like one in the last 3 years. And I'll tell you that the presentations that were, for one thing, the PDA attendance is always kind of the same. It doesn't matter what's written on the agenda. Unless we're handing out gold bars at the Carey House, I think it would be about 20 people, probably be the same 20 people. They tend to go to those meetings rather religiously. And for whatever reason, and I'll agree that the other merchants are busy, they're tired, they have these businesses, they run these brick and mortar businesses, it's very challenging. They don't go to these meetings. I went to the meetings, and I thought that the presentations that were done were very good. It shouldn't be implied that Dennis Thomas was the only one talking. Dave Warren spent quite a bit of time going through the numbers, informing people what the various parameters, what the council's guidance on this issue had been, the history of it, the whys and wherefores, and I thought it was really well done. And in fact, it was most of the information that the committee saw from reading the committee agenda packets and that we also did in the public meetings that we held. That were held, well, not the public meetings, but the council meetings afterwards here in the last couple of weeks. We're getting that kind of information. I am not inclined to change the composition of the committee right now. I think that they are excellent people. They're smart. They understand things. They've heard the public. They're no more or less likely to understand. I mean, I think they understand the issues. They certainly, many of them work in that environment. The challenge will be getting folks to come to the meetings. And that is the challenge. Those meetings that were held by the parking committee were public meetings. They were advertised as public meetings. People understood that. And for whatever reason, folks don't go to them. And I don't know. I mean, I have my thoughts about why, but So I think we can have the same committee, thoughtful, smart people in this community. And if folks show up and want to fix the problem and are willing to work cooperatively and in some sort of consensus capacity, I think we will get the right results the optimum results for what we're looking for. And I don't think we need to change the composition of the committee. Personally, it's my personal feeling. I think we've got good folks. I think if they listen, they will come to the right sort of conclusions. Your thoughts?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me clarify that. I had it was not my intent to change the item as it's written before us. I think we heard from one of those members that she already has a large load, and that if in the future someone does want to switch places, it would certainly be acceptable to her, because her interest is more in the infrastructure part of the committee's activities. I think we heard again this evening how it is a mistake to count on PDA and what and how they agendize and run their meetings. Again, something that is not under our control. What they do, they are their own organization with their own officers. So I think with what we're doing next week and the flyers announcing that, prove that we aren't going to be relying on PDA agendas ever again as a method that has 5 minutes or 50 minutes on their agenda. It will be our city communications that will take place. So I agree with you completely. To get this done timely, we need to have fully informed people involved on this committee. Thank these folks that are being, as Sue said, drafted in, again, to help the community. And with that, I would make a motion to approve 8.4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I, myself and Councilmember Thomas have dedicated at least some portion of the next 2 days, probably Thursday for me, to go to each individual business and hand out a flyer to the business. I'm going to make sure that they all know that this meeting is happening. And they should know. I mean, there's certainly been a lot of advertisement about it. It's been in the paper several times now. Pat's done a wonderful job reporting on this. Thank you. And
I want to thank you for doing that, Mr. Mayor. If you'd hold up that flyer, there's been a very nice flyer that is going to be delivered to every business in the next few days. Yeah. Announcing next Tuesday's
Next
meeting
Tuesday here, 6 o'clock.
This building. So I thank both you and the Vice Mayor for your efforts.
Be there. Okay. Item 8.5. Receive and file the 2016 sales and use tax recovery report from HDL companies. Mr. Warren or Mr. Morris. You guys can fight it out.
Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Grudge
Mayor.
match. Okay.
Members of the council. So tonight before you, you see a report from HDL, who is your sales tax auditor, and they've been doing this since the early 90s. And essentially, if they see something, if they notice a business not reporting correctly, possibly, they look into it. And you can see that over the past 10 years, they've been able to recover between $45,000 and $85,000 a year in sales tax, which is makes up 55% of your general fund. It's very important. So you can see that it varies from 2007 to 2016, the varying levels of recovery. And the cumulative recovery since 1991 is 1.1 million. So very significant.
And no one should mistake, this is not actually all of the sales tax money we receive. This is special. These people are like sleuthing, correct? And they look through and they see, oh, that should be this. You know, you could describe the sleuthing part of it. I'll probably mess it up, but you could describe the sleuthing part.
That's what I was going to say. Just give a for instance.
Yeah, give us a for
what
instance of what they would do.
What triggers a...
We share business license information. So if they see a retailer that has a business license but they're not reporting, that's an instant flag. If they're underreporting the percentage of sales tax, our sales tax is currently 0.25%. If they're underreporting, they'll contact the business, and of course they come to us first for authorization. They actually provide us a list of businesses that they want to contact, and we approve those lists before they go out and contact them.
Dave, quick question.
Yes.
So we recovered roughly $85,000 last year. How do we pay HDL? How does that work?
It's a form of commission. So for your add-on sales taxes, Measure J, Measure H, Measure L, it's 15% of the recovered amount. Once the dollars are recovered, everything in the future, they don't share in that, the spoils, if you will. For your general fund, Bradley Burn sales tax is 25%, same process.
Okay, do you know roughly what we paid them last year?
Last year it was about $2,200.
So we paid them $2,200 to get 85,000?
Correct.
It's pretty good return on investment.
Very good return.
Nice. All right, thank you.
Excellent, Sleuth.
That's what I'm
Okay.
doing. Thank you, Dave.
Okay. Would anybody have any comments or questions about item 8.5? All righty.
I'll move for approval of 8.5.
And I will second it. Thank you.
Okay. This is the report, so we can just do this. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. 10.1, waive the second reading and adopt an ordinance prohibiting smoking on the El Dorado Trail through the city of Placerville. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I think this title is fairly self-explanatory. We had addressed this at the last meeting. As you know, you adopted an urgency ordinance, but you also began the process, the normal process for adoption of this. So this provision of prohibiting smoking on the trail is actually in effect immediately due to the urgency ordinance. The action before you tonight is to waive the second reading and adopt this ordinance, which would then go into effect in 30 days. So.
Okay, do we have any questions from up here? Comments? Okay, it seems, you're right, I think it seems fairly straightforward. Do we have any comments or questions from the audience?
Good evening. My name is Teresa Salerno, and I work with El Dorado County Public Health Tobacco Use Prevention Program. And I am here in support of this ordinance to make the trails smoke-free. Not only is this ordinance going to reduce fire risks in the future, it will also reduce tobacco litter as well. As we know, tobacco litter is the #1 litter in the world. And it also takes cigarette butts take approximately 10 years, up to 10 years to decompose. So, this is just one more way that Placerville, the city of Placerville, is moving forward. We also know that it'll reduce the it'll reduce secondhand smoke exposure. And as we know, secondhand smoke exposure, there are no safe levels of exposure to secondhand smoke. In efforts for the city of Placerville to retain its historic charm like other cities, like Nevada City, it is my hope that future ordinances will also include a smoke-free historic Main Street as well as tobacco retailer licensing ordinances. And it's these ordinances like the ones you are passing, like smoke-free outdoor dining and smoke-free trails, that are improving the health of our community, and I believe that's what we're all striving for. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to comment on this item? Great. All right. Let's bring it back here.
I will move approval of the item.
Second.
Okay. Does this require, because it's like an ordinance thing, we probably ought to do a roll. Yeah, let's do a roll call. Roll call.
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarici?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
You're next. Item 12.1. No, hold on. You got it. There's some ceremony. You don't. What? There's a big build up to these things, and then there's a crescendo, and then you get to talk at the microphone. I'm just. Adopt a resolution suspending provisions of Placerville Municipal Code relating to parking enforcement on Sundays. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you recall, at your last meeting, August 8th, there was quite a review and discussion of parking at that meeting. However, it was agendized only as a presentation item, not as an action item. And but the discussion came up of discontinuing the enforcement on Sundays, and so it was requested that this be back on your agenda for that to happen. So this particular resolution would allow me to discontinue enforcement on Sundays. I will mention that we have actually already done that. We took that action after the last meeting, but this will make it official and give that official authority for that to happen, since our ordinance does say that we enforce on Sundays. So that's the purpose of this item tonight. As you know, we are convening the parking committee that will look at other issues and review the program more extensively, and so there may be other recommendations. We'll come back to you. Once all of those recommendations come back, we will look at going back and amending the ordinance to officially address issues like this.
Thank you. Any questions or comments up here? Real good. You're on.
This is.
I'm sorry, I had to do it. It's
Let's
Mike's
share-
birthday today, and this is how he's spending his birthday. So
Aw.
let's give him a big hand. Come on, Mike.
You know, if
You're getting old and tired, Mike.
Where was I? Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen. Born and raised in Placerville. Anyways, I was one of the founding fathers to Hangman Car Club, which Larry Mooney from the Placerville Police Department was our advisor, and this is back in the 1800s. But the Vietnam War came along and we disbanded, and I was three-time president. So with all that under, I'm wore out. So I just wanted to start my thesis quoting a great European leader, Winston Churchill. And he said, when you try to raise money through taxation, it's like standing in a bucket and trying to lift yourself up with the handle. And I don't mean that facetiously. But I have some suggestions is why don't we go back to the old marking system of the tire, marking the tires and then raising the prices so everybody will benefit. And that means that not only the local people, but also the tourists will also have to pay for this problem that we have. And for the young people receiving minimum wages that are working hard, and why not try let them buy a window card for a minimum amount that they can purchase, and they can put it display in their car so that they get a better rate and they don't have to spend a lot of their money just parking the money they receive. And I think what we all need to do is find a good solution that will accommodate everybody. And that's all I had to say, and keep cruising, folks.
Well, thank you very much for that. Okay.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
And thank you for the reference to Waldron Pontiac. That was my grandfather, and I haven't heard that in a really long time. So that brought back happy memories. He was, wasn't he? Thank you for that. Happy birthday.
Okay. Would anyone else wish to comment on this?
Name is Walter Kleinfelter, resident, long time. I made some comments last week about the parking thing, and I would like to congratulate everybody on following up and the quick action that the city took on the Sunday issue. Just overwhelmed me and a whole lot of people. I've taken a casual, informal survey of attitudes. Wow, you went from 0 to 100 in less than a day. I mean that seriously. There was a lot of people reflecting on that on Sunday. We're on the right track, and I hope we can keep it up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Good evening, Council. John Butterbaugh. Thank you for rolling back that Sunday. Coming from the restaurant industry, I know how important it is for the merchants downtown. And I have an opportunity to see people from all over the world, all over the United States on the weekends up at the Goldbug Park, and I send them downtown. And my question is, now that we have rolled back Sunday, are you planning on putting Sunday free tag on the parking signs? I mean, how does anybody know it's free on Sunday? Well, I mean, that is a question. And then I was under the illusion that you had rolled back from 7 to 5, but that didn't happen. And I still think that that's important. And I look at the restaurant industry. Let's say I come down to eat at 4:30, and I'm looking at my watch, and it's 6:45 because I'm having a good time. We're socializing. We're spending money. I still think it needs to be rolled back to 5 o'clock. because that's going to affect all of the merchants, not only the restaurant industry, but it's going to affect all of the merchants downtown. And when you have people from out of town, which I see all the time, they need to know that they have time to spend down there. Because I have an opportunity a lot of times to direct people down, and I always give them 5 different restaurants downtown and tell them about what each of those restaurants are. So these are people from all over the world, all over the United States, that are coming to our town, and it needs to be as friendly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address us now?
Like the others, I appreciate you addressing the problem, but again, it's belated. It's something that could have been done a year ago if it had been handled differently. Mark, when you talked about the kind of communication, you're not responsible for the PDA, and that's true. And Cleve appropriately has offered that defense before. They're not responsible, the city, for what the PDA does, but you just confirmed the same kind of makeup that accounts for the kind of agenda item I just cited a moment ago. And you had before you at the last city council meeting, members of the public who have businesses on Main Street, have business interests, who said they appeared before the parking committee and felt that there was no interest in their point of view. And I do appreciate, Mayor, you attending the meetings, but in fairness, it's only been recently that you've been able to attend the full meeting. In the past, you had a standing appointment where you couldn't make the last item, which is comments from open forum, where merchants get a chance to express the kind of views you may have missed. So frankly, I think you do have fresh talent out there. And if you go back and repeat the same kind of mistakes, it's kind of embarrassing that you have to look back upon that, because you cannot find a single scrap of paper anywhere from the city where they ask the business committee, what would you recommend? And we got some recommendations tonight. But can you show any piece of paper where you ever asked merchants, what do you think could be done? And approach it that way. Instead, what happened is in January, when this was presented to members of the business community, there was like a 3-page report with like 20+ items. And you have no way, honestly, no way to be able to read that in 5 minutes, let alone to ask questions. So if you continue to do it in the same fashion, you'll be repeating the same kind of problems. What's wrong with asking the public that you serve rather than let them come in an angry fashion? It could have been avoided by making sure that they got notice in the first place. But the perception people who attend those meetings had was that their views were discounted. And after all, it's starting off with, here's a package, and then all that was done after that was tweak it a bit. And that's not encouraging to see that we're going to have the same approach. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Okay. There was a question about.
The question was regarding how will we advertise the signage on Sunday. The signs that we have up at the parking meters currently say 7 days a week. Those are temporary signs because we knew some of these things were happening. There were going to be adjustments. So with your approval of this tonight, we will, as quickly as we can, change those signs that will say it's Monday through Saturday enforcement. So we will get that done as quickly as we can.
Question on that, Cleve, are you going to change and just keep them temporary signs?
Yes. They'll just
Okay,
be
good. I don't
temporary.
want to do full signs until we have the community meeting on Tuesday and the parking committee makes their recommendations and we,
Right.
Well, I was just gonna
address
say
all the tweaks that perhaps may be made.
I was going to say maybe we could just
Well, and we'll look at what we can do if there's a way to modify those signs in the interim, maybe. But anyway, we will take care of that. So those will be noticed. I see that Pat is here tonight. I'm sure that she will get it out in the paper also.
Yes, she's taking notes.
And we'll put it on our Facebook page and website, et cetera, to get that information out.
Okay. Anything else? You have a question?
I'm sorry. Go ahead. If I could, I would just like to respond just briefly to Mr. Smith. I have not heard any comments that the comments made at those parking committee meetings were not considered by the the parking committee. In fact, I think that they were heard. I will tell you that one of the strongest arguments we heard, and I was pushing against this, I'll admit, was to keep the 2 hours free parking in place. There's some real complications that we face as a staff in being able to record and enforce that. As you know, it's become a problem still with the enforcement. And so the easiest thing would be to say, at least in the facilities, the parking facilities, the lots and the garage, start it from minute one. We heard loud and clear from the members that came and spoke to us that was not at all what they wanted to see. We heard that and we fell back from that and said, no, we'll keep the 2 hours free in place. And so I think the committee was very responsive to those that came to the meetings and responded appropriately to them. So
We'll be hashing all this over at our meeting.
Just my final comment is, thank you all for your comments. The item before us is just to roll back the Sunday item. And it's important to keep in mind that we are not addressing the full program tonight. That, we'll do come to the meeting next Tuesday. We'll have the same amount of fun next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, and that's the time to flesh all these items out and to get into the minutia and really have a chat with our community, and then the parking committee will make recommendations and it will come back to the council at that time. So this is just a stopgap measure while we look at the full program. So just wanted to encourage everyone to come out for that and assure everyone that this is not the final measure, so to speak. So.
And I would like to disabuse people of a notion that somehow or another, because I'll address one of the issues that was brought up. I do go to the PDA meetings, but because I am also on the board of directors of the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, I have a meeting that I go to, and I meet Supervisor Veerkamp, and we drive down together. And that does frequently take me out before the open mic portion of that meeting. Let's see, how have I heard about parking just in the last 2 weeks? Well, when I got what's left of my haircut, I heard it then. I was in the used bookstore today, and I heard it then. I went to at least 3 lunches at Heyday, Independent, and I believe it was Cascada, where I heard it again. Almost every time I go to Rayleigh's, I hear it. The idea that I am not hearing from people about this issue is nonsense. And somehow I'm uninformed because I don't hang out at the PDA meeting to the very end is nonsense. We hear about it, all 5 of us hear about this on a regular basis. It's just like every other issue that comes up in this town that's important to people. So if you're thinking that I'm missing something, I haven't heard something, I haven't registered the complaints, I haven't heard the misgivings of people, that is nonsense. Thank you. Okay, we have an item on the board here.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for Mr. Morris and a couple of comments. Cleve, at our standing room only meeting a couple of weeks ago when this matter was brought to our attention, there were several folks that spoke that were concerned about the appearance and behavior of our enforcement contract employees. Has that issue been appropriately addressed?
I believe it have. Mr. Warren and I met with the supervisor, the manager, not one of the enforcement officers, but the manager, and talked about that and our concerns. They have gone back and done some additional training in customer service and other areas to work with those employees. They've also mentioned that they recognize the concerns, and with any employee there's a process to try to help that employee improve, and if they don't, then changes would be made. So.
Thank you. And I assume that if there is any further concern, that a member of the public could either contact yourself or Mr. Warren, who's on the first floor, our first line of defense. But seriously, if there's an issue out there, please let us know so that it doesn't grow.
That's correct. Preferably have them go to the 4th floor rather than the 1st floor. We're
Fourth
handling
floor.
that, so I'll give Dave a break on this one.
All right. I tried, Cleve. And I appreciate everybody's comments this evening, and they were very constructive. Speaking for myself, I too have realized that the importance of this issue every time we've tried to deal with it, and we are going to try and get it corrected quickly this year. And I would also like to say that I do appreciate all the efforts of PDA and what they do downtown, and they can only do so much as a messenger on behalf of the city and allowing us an audience, if you will. There have been times where we have to wait to get space on their agenda because they have other business that's important to the merchants downtown, and I understand that. And I would like to point out that for myself, I think that what the mayor and vice mayor have agreed to do this time is exactly the type of communication that it takes, and I commend them tremendously that they're going to deliver this color flyer to all the business owners in the next few days, so that so that they'll have an opportunity to be here next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, which will be the time to bring back your great ideas and submit them to the committee. The committee is still there to do its job and process the changes that perhaps do need to be made. And I would just remind folks again that if you do have an interest in serving on a committee, that after this next workshop would be a good time to approach either one of the city staff members or one of the existing committee members and express that interest, and we can go from there. So with that, I would make a motion to approve the item.
I'll second it.
Okay. Why don't we do a roll call?
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarici?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
I would like to remind everybody about committees. We used to have a historic, I forget what it was called, a historic advisory committee in one of the oldest cities in the state of California, and we had to disband it because we could not get enough people to be on it. So just to give you an idea of, it's easy to sit there and say, well, these people and those people and these people, but when it comes to the heavy lifting, it's very difficult to get people to put in the time and effort. And quite honestly, I think the merchants would rather have their input regarded and come up with some solutions that work out for them, irrespective of the 7 or so people. I guess it's more now. 7 people that are actually going to make that recommendation.
Well,
So
that's what the committee's for, though, is
that's
to
exactly
listen
what
to
it's for.
everybody, you know. It's just like we're a body of 5, but we listen to a lot of people.
You
So,
certainly do
you know.
try. Okay, 20. Okay, that's it for parking. You may all go now.
See you Tuesday. Same time, same place.
Yes.
Thank you.
You may all go now.
I believe we'll have fresh cookies.
I think cookies would be fantastic. I could use a cookie and some right now. Thank you. Okay. Whoa. What's the agenda say? That always has kind of the
That's that
readers.
12.2
12.2. Oh, it doesn't. But it's in good font, good size font. Okay. Adopt a resolution ratifying the construction services contract with GM Construction and Developers Inc. in the amount of $24,000 and some change for emergency services performed near the intersection of Spring and Coloma Streets on Highway 49. CIP number 41711, authorizing the Director of Community Services to execute the same, and approving a budget appropriation from the Measure L Fund in the amount of $25,000 for the said project, and approving $25,000 budget liquidation from the Canal Street Reconstruction Project, CIP 41821, Cleve. Yes, I'm. Go ahead, Mr. Morris.
Mr. Yule is on vacation for a couple of weeks, so he's
Lucky
not here
him.
tonight. This item that's coming before you, this was a water line leak that we had on Highway 49, Spring Street. And our crews went in and were attempting and getting permission from Caltrans, as that is a state highway, to make the repair. And Caltrans said, no, you can't dig up that street. It's just been paved. They would not allow it. So that then got beyond what our crews could do. And so they required us to do a jack and bore operation, and so we had to bring in an outside company to do that work. As you can see here, the cost was $24,464 to do the work. We did assist, I believe, with some of the flagging and et cetera to keep the cost down what we could, but so we do have that cost. Our recommendation is to you to approve that cost. The work has actually already been done. It was done as an emergency repair. But allow and take the funding from the Measure HL fund. That was reviewed with the Measure HL committee, and they approved it. It would come from by liquidating a portion of the Canal Street reconstruction project that is a portion proposed for this year. I want to assure you that doesn't mean that we're jeopardizing the Canal Street project. We still have, I believe, Rebecca, about $100,000 in that project, or is it a little less than that now?
It's approximately $75,000.
$75,000 now. That was a project that was funded over several years. Our first 5 years, we had about $250,000. due to various things that we brought back to you, we've taken from that account. That still leaves us money in there to get the design started and get some investigation going to where we'll know what we need to do. In the future, if we want to bring that project, really get it done earlier, we will probably look at financing the remainder of that and pay for that over time, because it's approximately about a $5 million project, as I recall.
Correct.
So that, I want to assure you, we're not saying we're not going to do this project. We have a lot on our plate right now, and this coming spring, we will do more in terms of investigation using the funding we do have in there for this year. We have to time that somewhat because although we get $2 million a year from Measure L and another $1 million from Measure H, or $500,000 that actually goes towards these projects, it doesn't always all come in today. It comes in over time over the next 12 months. So we have to kind of time those projects as they go, and we felt this was a good way to do Canal Street, that we can begin the investigation and get started on the project without jeopardizing it and still keep it on track for what we want to do. So.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, questions, comments, questions, comments? Okay. Would the public like to question or comment on this?
Sue Rodman, member of the Measure HL Committee. And I think this is another good example of the disintegration of the city water system, and a reason to be really glad we have Measure L and Measure H to help fix our infrastructure.
Amen.
Yes, yes. I'm a little miffed that we couldn't just go and fix this, though.
Again, because they had recently paved
that area. I got that part.
I will also state that in talking to our city engineer today, she has told me that once we pave Placerville Drive, which is scheduled, we will put a 3-year moratorium on from other utilities coming in and digging that up.
Ooh, so we get to do that to
similar
other people.
To what they are doing, we would do the same thing. In advance of that, they have notified utilities to let us know if there's anything needs to be done, and I believe EID possibly has some work that they would do.
Yes.
And so it's kind of the same thing that we would like to see. We don't want to see a road dug up. Right
No, that's true. I understand that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for talking me off the ledge.
Of course, it could work both ways. There's some really good portions of Placerville Drive where EID tore it up and fixed it, and we now have a nice area on that street, right?
Yeah, sort of.
Paving was done.
I will move approval of item 12.2.
Second.
Okay. Did I ask for public comment?
No.
Yes.
Yes, I did.
Yes, you did.
Oh, that's right. Sue, I'm
Eric was
sorry.
next, but he sat back down.
I'm sorry. 12.2.
It's late.
Okay. We're moving money, so let's have a roll call vote.
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarucci?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I cut off the last vote. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I expect that.
No. Jeez, that's oof. Okay. I'll try to be more nicer next time. Okay, thank you very much. 12.3, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to negotiate necessary contract change orders for a not-to-exceed aggregate amount of $30,000 for the annual roadway maintenance project list. Mr. Morris. No, Rebecca Neves.
Good evening, Mayor Clarici and members of the council. The annual roadway maintenance project list was approved as part of the city's annual budget process for fiscal year 2017-2018 with a budget of $150,000. On July 11th, council approved the first Measure L paving contract with Doug Veerkamp General Engineering in the amount of $118,068 for paving work on Placerville Drive from Fair Lane to Armory Road. Since that time, additional items needing attention have been evaluated and include but are not limited to the following: isolated pavement section full depth reconstruction, additional areas of grind and overlay, addressing deficient storm drain facilities, and potential curb ramp reconstruction. The extent of these items will not be fully known until the project is actively under construction. This request is to grant the city manager the authority and ability to implement expedient solutions during construction for efficient use of the funds to address additional items beyond the awarded contract scope of work and prevent delay. The city manager will be able to negotiate necessary contract change orders being requested for a not-to-exceed aggregate amount of $30,000. This amount represents an approximate contract contingency of 25%. the previously approved $118,068 in the construction agreement with Veerkamp and the requested $30,000 change order authority is within the $150,000 project budget. And with that concludes staff's report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for staff?
No.
Got it? Okay. Would the public like to comment on this item? Okay. Bringing it back.
I'll make a motion we approve as recommended
Second.
by staff.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Acuna?
Aye.
Councilmember Borelli?
Aye.
Mayor Clarici?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Thomas?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins?
Aye.
Did I get out in front of myself a little bit there?
No, you're fine. I just want to make one comment.
Yes.
Let you know that we've been advertising that this project would start the end of August. We're a little bit off that, but not by much. We finally got the dates. It will be done on September 6th and 7th.
Correct.
Is
It's
that
2
right?
days of work.
2 days of work.
Okay.
So that kind of explains why this item was before you too.
Right.
They're gonna
Oh,
move
right,
quickly,
right,
and
yeah.
we want to be able to address any concerns during that time.
Can we have a ceremony? I'd want to cut something or do something. I think our first sort of major-ish project, having Measure H&L, we should at least have like a really good photo op or something like that.
We did talk about that.
I think
Love it.
I think we should do something.
I will work with Rebecca and we'll.
Yeah.
We
put
can
something
shovel.
together.
Yes, sir.
I mean, don't.
Love it.
We'll get out the gold shovels, Mayor.
Yeah, it's okay. Not so much that. We're just, a
We
nice
need to
picture.
celebrate this. This is a big deal.
We could do something. A novelty check, but with something on it besides numbers. Okay. Council reports from other agency meetings. El Dorado County Transit Authority.
Nope. No.
Really?
Not since last.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
We didn't have a meeting.
Okay, and same thing for the El Dorado County Transportation Commission.
No.
LAFCO.
We meet tomorrow night, and we are on the agenda.
I know, that's
that's
very
right.
exciting. SACOG. We had a board of directors meeting the other day. There were two items. One is this, oh gosh, I already forgot the name of it. It's terrible. It's like an incubation thing. What was it? Yeah, anyway, that's how great it was. I forgot. It was actually very cool, and they're trying to think out of the box, and they convened a thing after our regular meeting, and it's sort of to kind of create new ideas around some old subjects that are in the region, and it was mostly for like staff folks, but they also elected board of directors there, and some of us went, and it was all very interesting. It was around transportation, and it's kind of the first of the kind of incubating type things that they're going to do over the next few years. So I'll make well, they actually need to report back to us on exactly what happened, because Supervisor Veerkamp and I had to leave early from the meeting to take care of other official business. The more important thing was there was a really good presentation, and I hope to kind of get it and maybe share it with folks, was on sales tax generation in the region and the future of sales tax generation, and of course the fight between the boxes of varying sizes and online sales and the convoluted laws and whatnot that go on to whether or not you actually point of sale is where, especially on the online stuff, is it where the person is, or is it where the distribution center is, or is it on Mars, or it's something like that, and where the taxes go, and it's all very important. Anybody who has read or knows anything or exists in the 21st century right now knows that internet sales are a growing part of the sales landscape, and so there was a lot of good data in there. A lot of it was to be named later kind of data, so they're still kind of working some stuff out. But the percentages and the growth of this, and of course California made a deal with Amazon to actually collect sales tax, which was huge for the state, and we think that's going to probably be a model for other states out there. And then where distribution centers land and all this other stuff, jurisdictions fighting over big boxes and what to do about that. Although it's a funny thing, the nature of retail is changing. I mean, it'll still kind of be the same 10 years ago from now that it is today, with some changes, but the longer term future of it is, fighting over sales tax might be like rearranging the deck chairs on a Titanic, that we might actually be after a zero-sum gain, and looking at other ways to fund essential services in our communities is probably going to be at the forefront of thinking in the real now term types of things. So trying to diversify your portfolio of revenue and whatnot, and not relying entirely on sales tax, will be probably something that that'll occupy folks' minds for a number of years off into the future. It was actually very interesting. Like I said, I'll try to get it from SACOG and then share it with everybody, because there was a lot of good factoids in there. Actually, a lot of it went well for towns like Placerville. Might actually be okay. Just the ones that really are in trouble are the ones that invested heavily in like large malls, really went after big boxes, and some of those big boxes are disappearing. And the problem when you have a big box and it's empty, it's just an empty big box and doesn't really lend itself to much of anything else. So anyway, I just wanted to report out on that because I thought it was really interesting and it's something that we can all relate to. And then the 2x2.
We meet quarterly and so.
Okay.
Meeting.
All right. Requests for future agenda items. Parking, it never goes away. Parking restrictions on Arizona Way, requested by Councilmember Acuna. First off, and I should know the answer to this, where is Arizona Way?
It is adjacent to Duffy Park, below the Cottonwood Apartments.
I know exactly where that is. Okay.
I asked the city clerk to put this on here as a reminder, not only for myself. I meant to put this on here last meeting, but we were so taken with our standing room only on it that I forgot.
Okay.
It's a constant issue. Our police department is up there a couple of times a month, I think, getting the abandoned cars towed out. There's just it's stopping productive use of the park.
Okay, cool. Thank you. All right. Are there any other requests for future agenda items in the future? Okay. City manager and staff reports. Receive a status update on the current sewer and water rate study and provide direction to staff regarding the proposed work schedule to complete the study and the distribution of an informational flyer with the September utility bills. Mr. Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. It's been a while since we've discussed the sewer water rate study, which is currently underway, and I would like to provide the council a quick update. As you know, the council approved an agreement with Bartle Wells, your consultant, to prepare the sewer and water rate study at your meeting on March 24, 2015. Since that time, both Bartle Wells and staff have been working on the study on a periodic basis. However, due to some major workload impacts, the study has taken much longer than originally anticipated. Staff and Bartle Wells are now prepared to complete the study this fall. On July 18th of this year, staff held an administrative kickoff meeting to discuss potential budget and rate structure assumptions as well as tentative project schedule to complete the study. We tentatively plan on including various budget assumptions shown on page 1 of your report and options for the City Council's consideration. Options. Staff also plans on including rate structure options as shown on page 2 of the staff report as part of the study for the Council's consideration as well. Again, different options. The rate study will include a 5-year rate schedule and survey results from agencies in the surrounding area. The tentative project schedule to complete the study is shown on page 2 of the report. As you can see, we plan on completing the draft study in late October. The study results will be presented at the City Council meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, the workshop, which is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, November 8th of this year from 6 to 8 p.m. At the council meeting being held on November 28th, Bartle Wells and staff will present the draft study results with any adjustments made from comments received from the previous workshop. We will also request that a Proposition 218 notice with a 5-year sewer and water rate schedules be mailed to the ratepayers in early December. A public hearing is tentatively scheduled for February 13th, 2018, when the City Council will be asked to approve the new sewer and water rates. If approved by the Council, the new rates would become effective February 16th, 2018, which is the first day of the May 10th billing period. Staff would like to distribute an informational flyer with the September utility bills informing customers about the workshop being held on November 8th. The flyer would be posted on the city's Facebook page and website. We also plan on providing the council with periodic updates on the study over the next few months. The cost of the flyer we're talking about would be approximately $1,000, which is included in your adopted fiscal year 17-18 operating budget. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have about the schedule.
We were discussing the $1,000 for the flyer, but if you consider it's going to go to however many ratepayers there are, 3,500, That's like 30 cents a piece, even though they're going out in the mailers. They're going out in the bills, but we're not paying for the postage. But 30 cents is not, yeah. It should be a nice flyer, I imagine.
We'll do our best.
Okay.
Yes.
And you do well. Okay. Does anybody have any comments or questions about this item?
It'll be good to get this done.
It'll be interesting, that's for sure.
I had a question.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor. Dave, what was your original schedule? I noticed you note early on that due to workload and what have you, that this has been delayed. Time frame originally, where were you?
Originally, the same schedule, but in 2015 and 16. So starting the fall of 2015 and
okay.
Actually adopting November of 2015 approximately.
My concern is, and I've heard this before, and I've sat at a council meeting that I think almost everybody in town was at, when the rates were raised back in 2008?
2009.
When we rented an auditorium to accommodate the large audience. My concern is the fact that this is going to happen over the holidays, and people are going to be distracted, and people are going to claim they were distracted and didn't see the notices and didn't have time to be at a meeting. And quite frankly, I don't want to be at some of these meetings and Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I didn't, that's why I thought maybe originally you were going to do it like starting in February and have all that public hearing stuff right out in the middle of summer, and where people wouldn't have, there would be no additional excuse or legitimate distractions too. That is a busy time of year to say, oh, I need to go down to the city hall for 2 hours, or the auditorium, or the new Kings Arena because we need that much room. I see it as a real problem to do it during the holidays.
Thank you for the input. There's never a good time.
I was going to say.
Oh, no, I've never found that there was, no.
Yeah, the challenge is you
unless you're going to lower them.
Yeah, you have your year-end close process, which is workload heavy. You have your budget process. But if, one of the things I want to caution the council is that your sewer enterprise fund, you may recall your 2006 SRF loan. There was a workout of that loan back in 2011, whereby the debt service payments were reduced and ramped up over a 4-year period. You're now making the maximum, the total debt service payment. However, about $400,000 of that debt service payment is being paid from one-time monies called your rate stabilization reserve. That reserve will dry up by the end of this fiscal year. So it's imperative that we address that structural deficit in your sewer enterprise fund sooner than later. If we don't, it could be a serious situation in your sewer enterprise fund, quite frankly.
Well, I want to thank you, Dave, for the information on the why for your schedule, so that I now have good information, the need to do it when we're doing it.
And the first workshop is to be held November 8th?
Correct.
So that is before Thanksgiving.
Right.
Yeah. Good thoughts.
No, and my experience in this field is the problematic meeting is that one at the end of November, because that is getting into the holiday season. You almost want to kick that to like the first week of December. It depends. I'd have to look at the calendar. That's a real tough one.
Mm-hmm.
The first one in November shouldn't be a problem. We can still grab people by the ears and get them. I mean, and this kind of is along the same things as parking.
You think?
Well, it'll be interesting.
Well, this is a special, you mean the workshop on
The workshop, and then the final workshop is in February, and by then you've cleared everything
Right.
out. So
nice. Yes, I
so
agree.
I think the problematic one, if there is in fact a problematic one, is that workshop at the end of November, beginning of December. Early November is fine. I do meetings all the time. Early November meetings. If they're big issues and people are interested in them, they'll come out in the first week of November. They will. I know it. I do it all the time. The one that'll give us maybe some pause for thought will be that one at the end of November and the beginning of December. And even that, you can sort of thread the needle and get folks to come out. I mean, we are talking about water and sewer rates. I work in water all the time. I could have a meeting on December 24th, and if I'm dealing with water and water resources, I'll fill a room full of people because it's a hot button issue. My guess is that we will fill a room full of people if we have this meeting on Thanksgiving afternoon, because it's going to be a big thing, and people are going to come out to the meeting. I have every confidence of that. But we should, no, those are good questions, and we really need to make sure, though, that we really redouble our efforts at advertising, getting the word out, hitting all the right buttons, and making sure that folks know it. And I think we'll be fine. I think we'll be okay.
I appreciate your observation.
Okay. Anything else? No. Okay. Would the public like to speak on this item?
Sue Rodman, local ratepayer. I remember when we did the last one and we had to rent the hall and part of the reason was because you did not give a really good 218 notice out to the public. So I would hope that this go around, we actually make sure that everybody gets as good a 218 as EID did. Because ours was, it met the very minimum legal requirements. It was almost not sufficient. We almost could have taken it to court and got it taken out. So whatever we do, when we send out the letters to our ratepayers, we need to make sure that they know what their 218 appeal rights are and that they have adequate time to do it. And that means that that needs to happen before the meeting when you actually adopt the rates.
Those are excellent. I'm sorry. Come ahead, Evelyn. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Evelyn Vierkamp, Placerville. I must say I'm encouraged to hear the concern from a couple of councillors about the timing of the meetings. When I first saw the timing of the meetings, being the cynic I am, I thought, my God, they're doing it again to us. So it really is important that people have a chance to be informed and don't think that they're having the wool pulled over their eyes. I have a couple of questions. One is the cost of the study that's being done. How much is that in round numbers?
Well, let's get all the questions and then we'll answer.
Okay, that was number one. And kind of an ancillary question is, why is Dave Warren not doing that? He's entirely competent to tell us how these things work and what we need. And I am quite sincere in expressing my confidence in our finance director. I don't know why we're paying somebody to do what I believe Mr. Warren can do, except if he, doesn't have the time. If I don't know what his workload is like, but I think we pay for a lot of studies, and I'd like to know the collective cost of them. So that's, I didn't expect an answer on why isn't Dave Warren doing it, but I would like to know how much the study's costing. A second question I have is in respect of the February winter floods that impacted the wastewater plant. What was the total cost to the city of that? And did the city absorb that cost itself, or did we get some kind of subsidy or government help? And then I see that the biggest component, or it appears to me the biggest component of concern motivating the increases that we're going to be having is around staff benefits, staff salaries, retirement, and so on and so forth. Can somebody give, I would like to assume that those are only in respect of water and sewer staff, but I don't know. It's not clear from the report that we had attached to this agenda that it is just staff of water, related to the water and sewer. So which staff are we looking at to cover their salary increases, benefit increases, and so on and so forth? And more significantly, does the city of Placerville actually believe that in the long term it can handle the ballooning PERS requirements for retirement and so on and so forth, and health benefits? I have a vision of many cities and jurisdictions going under, and I hope that my own city is not one of them. But it's a huge factor. I'm sure that our finance director thinks about that from time to time, as does our city manager. But the two substantial or substantive questions I have are around the cost of the rate study and the February flood of the wastewater plant, what the cost was and who bore it.
Well, thank you, Evelyn. Anyone else wish to speak on this before we start answering questions? Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the comment regarding the Prop 218 notice back in 2009, I actually agree with Sue Rodman. We could have done a better job. We've learned a lot, and there's been court cases that have affected the interpretation of Proposition 218. So Mr. Morris and I will be relying heavily on Bartle Wells, their analysis, as well as your city attorney, in ensuring that our Prop 218 notice is clear and concise, as well as legal. So that's the first thing. And thank you for Ms. Faircamp's comments regarding my ability. The cost of the study is $25,000 for just the consultant. And there are things, areas of expertise I don't have and your staff does not have. There's also the workload associated with doing the surveys. There's also changes in, again, Proposition 218 that we need to look at to ensure that our tiers are legal in the future, your water tiers. So although a lot of the math we can do at the finance department, there's certain aspects of the study that I wouldn't feel comfortable presenting to you as a final product without them signing off on it, quite frankly, to protect the city and the residents. So the damage to the water reclamation facility, Cleve, help me, was it about $500,000 approximately, I believe? $400,000. Most of that, about 94%, it's looking like it will be reimbursed through FEMA and Cal OES. We're still working with them, determining which projects are eligible for reimbursement and what's not. The city would have to come up with 6% of the cost, which your Measure H, Measure L committee recommended that you fund from Measure L. So we have a plan for that. In regards to personnel costs, the study focuses on just positions that have a direct nexus to your water and sewer systems. So your water reclamation facility operators, their salaries and benefits.
And that's by statute, right? That's like the regulations require you. If you're taking money for rates, they have to go to.
Yes.
Yeah.
Your sewer enterprise fund and your water enterprise fund can charge what it costs to provide the service.
Right. Right.
And also your public works staff, those that work on the sewer collection system and the water distribution system. And there's aspects, for example, your finance department. We do utility billing, so a portion of their salaries are also included in your water sewer budget. That's the staffing that we're talking about. I think that's it, unless I forgot something. Oh, PERS.
Yeah, you have 1 minute or less.
PERS. Yes, it is something we think about a lot, Mr. Morris and I. And it is, new news is breaking all the time about what that liability is. Right now, I can tell you that in the next 5 to 6 years, the city's contributions for pension costs will probably go up about 50%. And so the sewer enterprise fund and the water enterprise fund needs to, the budget needs to adjust for that, for its proportional share, and that's something we'll be looking at in the study. And we will break those numbers out so you can see those numbers and know what those are.
Thank you. And actually, though, the city, you mentioned this to me. I don't want to get too far into PERS because it's really not part of this, but we talked about the unfunded liability and the percentages and stuff. And the city's not bad compared to other places, from my recollection. We're actually, I mean, it's not great, but it's not horrible.
As of fiscal year 16-17, your unfunded pension liability is just north of $13 million.
Right, right. And now as the percentages, we were like, I forget what you want to be actuarially, you want to be around 80, well, you'd like to be 100%, but 80 to 85% is considered.
80 to 85, you're pretty much fully funded.
Fully funded, and we were in the 70s, I think, or the 60s?
High 60s.
The high 60s.
About 67%.
So folks should understand that and there are cities that are in single digits and they're horrible. So and we want to be higher, but the folks should take some solace in the idea that we're not you know, we're within sight of where we should be. It's not dire,
We're
but
not
it's something
Chicago.
that, what's that?
We're not Chicago.
We're not Chicago, and we're not Vallejo and Stockton and some other places. I mean, there's other places that are in much worse shape. We don't use them as standards. We want to be better, but the folks should know that. The other thing, too, is I think that what we also, and maybe this could be just part of the process, we don't see this rate increase as a cash cow. We're not looking away. It's not like when all of a sudden you find out that the county's decided to charge you a bunch of overhead because they gave a bunch of raises to people. It's all very legitimate. Don't get me wrong, county. But we're not looking at this as a cash cow. We do legitimate charges legitimately for those items whenever we do them. So folks need to just, and I really want to drum that home, that we are very responsible with the rates that we charge for water and sewer and how we allocate them to the different bits in the city and whatnot. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think we did that. Oh, okay, so this was just a receive, right? Yeah. Okay, we received it. Anything else, sir? Anything else from you? Okay, great. Planning Commission vacancy update.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I wanted to quickly announce that interviews for the vacant Planning Commission seat will be taking place this Monday, August 28th. Closed session at 5:30, open session at 6 p.m. This will be a special meeting of the City Council where the appointment of the position will take place following the interviews. The 4 candidates have been contacted, and so far 3 have confirmed their attendance, and an agenda will be posted later this week. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all your work on that. We appreciate it very much.
You're welcome.
Now I know why you're here. You know, we could have probably moved this up, but you got to listen, which is great. The Parklet update, Mr. Rivas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll try and be brief. Staff also has the same issue of can't go to Rayleigh's, can't walk down Main Street, go in any store, go anywhere in town without, where's the parklet? So the issue mainly stemmed from contracting. The agreement, there were some issues with the contract between the county and the original contractor that was going to construct the parklet. So the local contractor went away. A bid proposal was put out. We did have a contractor from Sacramento that was very, very interested in constructing the parklet. I personally spoke with this contractor, as did Ms. Torrin Casa from the county. She's the project manager for the parklet. And he assured us he was interested, and that kept going on week after week after week until we finally gave up on him. So the way we're going to handle the contracting situation now is staff is proposing that the city and the county will enter into an agreement that will allow the $10,000 grant to be transferred from the county to the city. The city would then go through a purchase order arrangement with the original local contractor. And so we will be bringing that agreement to you for, of course, for council approval. Staff is currently reviewing that agreement. And because of, we're now about mid-August, we were hoping to get the parklet out and in use for at least a 5 or 6 month period of time so that we can study it, see how it works, see how useful it is to the public, whether they like it, all those kinds of things. And if you recall, the parklet is going to be placed at Creekside Place there by Timmy's Brown Bag, where we think it would get a lot of use and good public scrutiny. And so that's where we're at. And so once we complete that agreement, I have been in contact with the original contractor, and he is immeasurably busy right now with jobs that he's working on. And so he is very interested and does want to participate and does want to construct it and also work with the original students. Fortunately, I think most, if not all, of the students that helped design the parklet were juniors at the time, so now they are seniors and they'll still be able to participate in that parklet. And I think that's what the original contractor was hoping to do, was actually work with the students. We also have architects volunteering time, or have wood that'll be donated to the project. We still have donations coming from a solar company to make all of that a reality. So if the parklet is not able to be installed by fall or before the rains, then we propose that we would put the parklet in the springtime and leave it up for 5 months, where the parklet would then be, it'll be turned over to, of course, the county to own, operate, and maintain the parklet, and then they would dismantle it and take it off, and we'll see where it goes from there. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this point.
Yeah, thank you for that update. And the problem is when you go ask for money, ask for like $200,000, because then it makes it worth going through all the process of dealing with all the stuff. I really think we might want to consider moving this back out to the spring again, just because to give the project kind of its full due. Mercifully, the person and the folks that are involved that won't have graduated from college by then, so they'll still be around. They'll be able to do their thing and get the full effect of it, and we can move on from there. I don't. If anybody else has any comments or anything, that would be great. Or question.
It'll be a crowning achievement of their senior year, right? Of the spring.
I was looking for a ribbon cutting ceremony. I was really kind of bummed.
It's an exciting project, and sorry it's taken so long to get off the ground. Thank you to everyone for hanging in there.
I'd like to thank the county for their perseverance, and it has to be tremendous patience, because okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask Kristen a question? I just want to make sure, and Pierre's probably already done this, or Pierre, maybe you can answer. In terms of the timing on the grant, is there any concerns if we did move it back and install it next spring? No, okay, thank you.
So springtime, what do we mean by springtime? What would be a good target date for the final project to be installed?
March.
March.
That's what I'm thinking, March or April.
What does Kristen think of that?
After the rains.
She'd probably be happy to see anything built anywhere, and yeah. Obviously, it'll depend. If we get 66 inches of rain again, we might not be able to build it for a while. But that'll be a happy problem that we'll deal with. But sometime in the spring. It's nice to leave things kind of vague.
If I could add, Mr. Mayor, in the meantime, the contractor has explained to me that he would be happy to engage with the architect and the other folks and actually complete the design and the materials they're going to use, and so they'll be ready to go to construction as soon as his projects are all set aside, and then he can devote the time to actually build it. So that'll happen long before the springtime.
Fantastic.
Great.
That
Sounds
sounds
good.
great. Very exciting. Okay. And I believe, upcoming items. Items tentatively scheduled for the next regular meeting on September 12th. Presentation from Sacramento Metro Chamber. Eyes on the Trail update. Corporation Yard roof repair. Woohoo! Measure H recommendation, sewer truck replacement and repair. And I'm sure there'll be other things before we get to September that will be on there. So, go ahead.
I actually was trying to add the item regarding the Apple Core Fringe, but you kind of addressed that. Were there any other questions the council had on that? Just so you know, I wanted to mention that the use of Historic City Hall, we've got permission talking to our building official that as long as we're doing that just on an interim basis, not a permanent lease of the building, that works. We will be providing the insurance and et cetera for use of the building, and that should be fine. So if there's any other questions you have, I can answer those.
They just won't be allowed to go upstairs, right?
Correct. It'll just be downstairs.
Okay.
And there are some requirements that we're requiring him to do in terms of cleaning up and making the facility safe and et cetera. So.
Less dodgy. Okay. All right. Is that it, everyone? We're good? You good? Okay, great. Go home.